We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
Ben Smith from the New York Daily News, and I am podcasting this week from the Regency Hotel in Manhattan, where I sat down with Congressman Rahm Emanuel. He was at the Regency raising money for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, which he chairs, and is also promoting his new book, which is called The Plan, and which he co-wrote with Bruce Reed.
I meant to ask you about the universal service piece of the plan. Can you tell me about it? Like, how's this going to work? Are people going to live in barracks?
Universal civil defense training. And so, yeah, I think he had it at 18, but we were saying somewhere at the ages of 18 to 25, you will do 3 months of training. You can do it in between your some point in college. You just do that. But there could be nothing wrong with all Americans having a joint, similar experience of what we call civil defense training or civil service, or some sense of service to country and preparation, which will give people a sense of what it means to be an American. So it is, we propose 3 months. At the end of the day, somebody says it should be 4. I'm not going to sit here and hang up over it.
It's a lot more than the U.S. government asks of anybody right now. I mean, I guess you could argue that from taxes.
No, it's because we have a lot more. We have a lot more challenges. So you're going to need a lot to do it. But
I guess I don't mean to get hung up on kind of the aesthetics of it, but uniforms and people who do Europe, people get,
if you're worried about doing, if you're worried that if you're going to do 50 jumping jacks, the answer is yes.
Right. No, but I mean, are you kind of shipping you to the country out to army bases in the summer? I mean, I wonder how it's going to work. I mean, this is people's experience. It's so abstract. So is it going to be
well, it could be worked through.
It's like you go 9 to 5 to some course in the Red Cross building.
Well, I mean, that will be the whole idea there is it will be worked out. You could do it through your state National Guard. Could be the vehicle to that. The goal here wasn't to sit here and work out a piece of legislation for you and all that, but that's one venue to doing it.
And would it? I mean, I guess would it? Are you? I mean, some sort of I'm a little hung up on the barracks. Is
there a reason? Do you want to talk about it? Do you think maybe?
I think I'm trying to tape recorder.
Let me ask you a question. Do you have Blue Cross Blue Shield coverage on this? Are you worried about this in some capacity?
I'm just curious. I'm just trying to sort of imagine it.
Well, rather than figure out whether you take a train ride or a barrack, think of it this way. There'll be a common experience, and you'll be prepared. God forbid that. Okay. God forbid that there's chemical hit, there's another terrorist act, or a natural disaster, which are coming more frequent. There'll be a body of citizens who are ready and capable and trained. That's all you have to think about.
Congressman Rahm Emanuel has been picked by Barack Obama to be his White House chief of staff.
And now you have a book with the ambitious title of The Plan. The word universal comes through a lot. Universal will scare some people. They will think big government program. The idea of universal citizen service. You have to participate.
Citizenship is not an entitlement program. It comes with responsibilities. Everybody somewhere between the ages of 18 and 25 will serve 3 months of basic training and understanding in a kind of civil defense. That universal sense of service, somewhere between ages 18 and 25, will give Americans, once again, a sense of what they are to be American and their contribution to a country and a common experience. And you look at World War II, and that was a draft, but this is not a draft, it's a universal service. It is not an accident that we started our big march towards civil rights and expanding post-World War II, because the country came through an experience together.
So is this compulsory then?
Well, you have to, in a sense, it's required of everybody, 18 to 25, 3 months, because I think anytime somebody serves their country in some capacity, we're going to be stronger for it.
Healthcare now, and with the bill now a law, Fox News is asking what next. Today, a closer look at a little-known provision of the overhaul, one about which you may not have heard anything. The reform law calls for the creation of 6,000-person army, if you will, a sort of army of trained public health care professionals. That group to reportedly be involved with disease prevention programs and other big health issues. But we're told members would also respond in the event of an emergency situation, kind of like the National Guard would. You know, after the attacks of 9/11, the doctors were like, man, we're not prepared for this. So this tries to create an army to help under such a circumstance. But the question whether this would square with the National Guard we already have, and do the feds have the constitutional power to create such a thing? With us now, Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano, former New Jersey Superior Court Justice, and the author of the new book, Lies the Government Told You, which is available on bookstands now. Can they do this?
Well, the language is intentionally vague, and it's a little scary because of the military-sounding words used in the creation of this group.
Yeah, they ought to change those words.
Well, by referring to it as a reserve corps, and the training is the same as the regular corps, it gives you the impression that the president has the power to take over the National Guard from state governors in peacetime. Now, under the Constitution, he can't do that, but a fair reading of this legislation would let him do it. Another way to read the legislation is these are healthcare professionals, but they're going to train with the military, meaning they would carry sidearms.
Oh, really?
And
would carry sidearms?
Well, if they're going to train with the military, that's what the military trains with. Now,
that doesn't mean they would, does it?
Again, the language is so vague. So there's a couple of constitutional problems in here. One, if it's military, then the budgetary item is off, because you can only budget the military year by year, and this supplies money for 4 years for this program. Two, if you're a physician and you're in this group and you want to retire, you won't be able to retire if the president calls you on active duty. Three, if you're a member of the National Guard and a physician and he calls up the National Guard and you want to retire, you can't retire until the president lets you. So those who are concerned that the Congress has, without adequate debate or notice or warning, in a 2,700-page bill, authorized the president to remove military personnel from the states or to create a new army, have legitimate fear, in my view. We don't know how this is going to be implemented. The language is intentionally vague. It could be military or non-military and still be consistent with the statute.
I guess we have to wait and find out what that is. Remember, you know, Dr. Stephen Garner, a friend of mine, and I think a friend of yours as well.
Yes.
He was an advisor to Rudy Giuliani in the days, weeks, and months after the attacks of 9/11 on health care matters. And he said at the time, I remember in the early days after 9/11, he goes, Shep, we didn't need a lot of hospital space, sadly, this time, but we realized we didn't have it. Hospitals in the city were at about 80% at the time. Because we didn't have the volunteer medical staff put together to help after an attack like this. He's like, we got to figure out something. And I wondered if this is an attempt at something like that, whether constitutional or not is not my purview.
The government has the Public Health Service. The government has the Center for Disease Control. It can hire as many physicians as it wants in either of those. What's scary about this is the use of the military language and the reference to the National Guard. You see, the president can't go to the National Guard of Mississippi or New Jersey and say, you now work for me, unless we're at wartime.
No, he works for the governor.
Right. Unless we're at wartime and he's going to send these people to defend the country. But this language in this statute would let him take people from the National Guard in non-wartime. That has not happened. That would provoke a serious constitutional confrontation.
Do you think that it's so vague at this point that we need to wait to figure out what they're talking about?
No, I think it's so vague at this point so that they can do with it whatever they want, and by the time they've already done it, it'll be kind of late to challenge it, but the challenges will come anyway.
Fascinating.
This is what happens when a bill is nearly 3,000 pages and nobody, and even the people who wrote it, have the time to read the other parts of it.
How does something like that end up in there? Who put it in there? We don't know.
We don't know who put that in there. That's a very good question. I'll get you the answer for that. But this was written by a number of people, no one of whom read everything. Now, as people are starting to read it, things like this come out. I get the emails. People in the government are starting to read it before they print it, and people are asking, what does this mean? What does that mean? Is this military or is it non-military? There was no debate on it, so there's no legislative history. If you look on the debates on the floor of the Congress, there's nothing about this and many other clauses in this, because members of Congress didn't have the time to read it.
Does it sound well-intentioned to you? I mean,
no, it doesn't sound well-intentioned to me because of the military language. If the government needs physicians, it has the ability to hire them. But putting them under the direct command of the president and saying you will train with the military is what is scary. Why do we need military-oriented physicians if the emergency is stateside?
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.